Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and streamed on AACPS's YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room. So please make sure you read those if you have not already done so. We're now going to continue with our invocation. Oh God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies. Being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Okay, moving on, approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Yes, motion to approve the minutes is written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have consensus? We do have consensus. Okay, moving on to establish the order agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion. How about consensus? We do have consensus. Okay, so that is going to move us on to item 3, public comments on agenda items. And we have a few this afternoon. And before we get to the comments, this is one of the opportunities that board provides to hear the views and receive the advice of community members. The members of this board appreciate hearing from interested citizens. As appropriate, we will refer your concerns to the superintendent for follow-up and staff. The public will hear, or the board will hear public comment from up to 10 total speakers, combined virtual and in-person per agenda item, excluding personal items, reports, and recognitions during a single public comment section in the early portion of the meeting. The board will hear public comments from up to 10 total speakers on items not on the agenda item, excluding any student-specific or personnel items near the end of this meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that any inappropriate personnel marks or other behavior that disrupts or interferes with the conduct of this meeting are out of order. Persons using language that is threatening or promotes violence against members of this body or Anne Arundel County Public School employees are subject to legal penalties. Persons who otherwise disrupt or disturb this meeting will not be allowed to continue their remarks and will be asked to leave the meeting. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. I do ask that speakers observe the 2-minute clock. A yellow light will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a tone will sound when your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the tone. If you continue after your time has expired, the microphone will be turned off. It could also be turned off if a speaker addresses specific student or employee matters or are commenting on matters not related to public education in Anne Arundel County. And so we do have 2 speakers. We have one in person, that's Carrie Williams. Carrie, come on down.
Good afternoon, Dr. Bedell and members of the board. My name is Carrie Williams. I am a parent of 3 children at AACPS, one who is preschool aged and has Down syndrome. Safety breaches involving students with disabilities continue to occur at AACPS. Some examples that have been recently communicated to me are instances where children could not be located when a parent arrived to pick them up, transportation times of more than an hour and a half from school to house or vice versa, which brings up hygiene concerns for students who are not yet potty trained, buses not showing up at all to take kids to school, thereby limiting access to education, buses showing up 30 to 60 minutes late with kids potentially waiting outside in recent heat indexes of 95-degree plus weather, lack of communication between the bus companies and the school system, resulting in students being put on buses who are car riders. All of the examples just mentioned are unacceptable. The students who we are discussing are ones who may not communicate verbally, who have intellectual disabilities, who use assistive devices to access their world. Students who are generally a more vulnerable population. On the surface, transportation appears to be the main issue. Changes need to be made to transporting children with disabilities, as previously mentioned. But when you peel back the layers of the onion, the real underlying obstacle to keeping our kids safe is staffing and budgeting. Transportation problems cannot fully be discussed without noting the elephant in the room. AACPS is not able to appropriately staff special educators, TAs, TSAs, and bus aides and properly retain them. Their salaries are subpar compared to neighboring counties. Not addressing the root of these issues sends the message to stakeholders that the worth of children with disabilities is not valued highly enough to prioritize safe, timely transportation and their access to educational opportunities. Please show us that the disability community, that all actually means all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have one virtual speaker, Amanda Morales.
Hi, yes. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Amanda Morales. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Maryland. I also have a child who is enrolled in AACPS. And I just want to speak a little bit about some of the problems that Carrie has also mentioned today. Just as a personal note, my daughter attends ESY. The communication problems that we've received from the school and others have received from the school has been an issue from the start. Communication has been lacking all around. Most of the families that I have spoken with that are engaged in the ESY program this summer have gotten no communication from their child's teacher or from the school, or any communication they have received has been labeled inappropriately. For example, I have received emails about Camp Engage, which apparently is being done in conjunction with ESY, but that was not known to me. The only communication I received from the school was a curt call that asked if my daughter was going to attend or not. I have received no email communication follow-up. I did not even know my child's teacher until I pressed the issue, and my child is not able to communicate these issues to me. When I contacted the school and expressed my concerns, I was told, and this is a direct quote, "Put my child on the bus and the staff will get her where she needs to go." For our children that are nonverbal, they can't identify themselves, and these are different teachers that our children don't know. Those teachers don't know our children. How are they supposed to know who these children are and where they're supposed to go? This ends up creating multiple problems, like putting children on wrong school buses, not picking children up from school, children being in the wrong classroom, children's needs not being met, their toileting being affected. Regular communication is something that is in a lot of our children's IEPs, and the communication's not happening. These are our students with the highest support needs, and those needs are not being met. And when those needs aren't met, it's a violation of their educational rights. And so we are here as a community to stand up against that, because we have been ensured at the federal level that our students' rights are met. And currently, due to budgetary constrictions through all levels, they're not being met.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
The hygiene needs are not being met, and the transportation is not being met. And that just needs to be rectified.
Okay, thank you. So we're now going to be moving on to item 4.0 reports, 4.01 policy committee report. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, I was still taking notes. So the policy committee met on June 25th for our closeout meeting for the 23-24 school year. We, in that meeting, considered policies GD, employment of foreign nationals. JECA, students with known anaphylactic allergies or who are perceived to be having symptoms of anaphylaxis. And a new policy for board emergency management. All three of those policies are before the board today for first reader. We also had the opportunity to review regulations for policies GAD, RA, confidential communication reporting, at-risk student behaviors, regulations for policy GD, employment of foreign nationals, and JECA, the other policy we're hearing today. And then the end of our meeting was our closeout, where we reviewed the activity of the policy committee from the 23-24 school year. And the policy committee has considered 16 policies this school year. There are several that were on the docket that are still in development. So as the policy committee meets to ramp up for the new school year, certainly those will be given priority consideration as we consider the calendar for the upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Moving on to the item 4.02, the President's report. So I have a very brief report today. On June 21st, I had the opportunity and the honor to attend the Juneteenth celebration at the Doubletree Hilton Hotel with my colleague, Dr. Tobin, and also Dr. Bedell. It was a fantastic event and an absolute marvelous event. And the second thing that we have this evening is I would like to welcome our new student board member. She's with us today for the first time. And on behalf of the board, Dr. Bedell, welcome, Hafsa, and I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Mr. Silkworth. I'd like to thank you all for welcoming me so warmly to the board, truly. I'm excited to join the team and work alongside all of you to guide our growth and ensure student success. I am incredibly passionate about advocating for educational equity and creating opportunities for every student to thrive in our system. I'm committed to advocating for fair resource allocation and programs that support our diverse student body. I'm so excited to help work with my fellow board members to foster an environment where all students feel valued and empowered to reach their full potential. I really do look forward to collaborating with you all for however long I have with you to make ACPS a model of both equity and excellence. I'm truly confident that we can make a real difference together. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're moving on to item 4.03, our superintendent's report. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have about 4 or 5 different updates. And before I get into the updates, I also wanted to take this time to welcome Christina Catalano, who's here, and she is our new Chief Academic Officer. To the speakers who just spoke, we don't respond back to you, but know the right people are in this room today that have heard your concerns from our Assistant Superintendent in Special Education, in addition to our new Chief Academic Officer. And a part of this Phase 2 reorg that we're going through right now is by design set to help us to ensure that we're doing a better job with special education services and all of those good things. And I think as we go through this presentation of the superintendent's update, staffing is a big deal. I think we'll have some positive news on that. And if we begin to get our staffing in order, I think it makes it a lot easier for us to advocate for more with our funders. So I think there's help on the way. And I just want to give that assurance people are in this room. So thank you and welcome to the team, Christina. First, I want to highlight the work of all the members of our team in our Financial Operations Office, whose work earned the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement. This award reflects our commitment to sound financial stewardship. And just so that everyone doesn't underestimate this commitment, this is the 41st consecutive year our team has earned the award. What's more impressive is that AACPS has earned this award 45 times, more than any other school system in Maryland and more than all but 4 schools in the nation. So I want to thank everyone involved in these efforts. Next, I'd like to talk about the formal launch of our new strategic plan on July 1. This is a plan developed by our community, and everything revolves around the 16 words contained in the vision. And this is something that you just heard from our student board member that really resonates with me. They are: Anne Arundel County Public Schools is a school community where everyone can belong, grow, and succeed. Notice the word everyone in that statement. That's very important because it is something that I've heard over my first 2 years in this school district, that not everyone feels that they belong, that there's been neglect, whether it's through special education or even the way that our gifted and talented education continuum is set up. And these are things that this phase 2 reorg, along with this implementation of a strategic plan, is designed to attack. The entire plan can be found online at www.aacps.org/strategic plan. And the pages are compatible with mobile devices. This is a living document, and information will be added as the school year progresses. This will also include a scorecard so our community can keep track of our progress. So please check back often. I have mentioned this before, but I want to take a minute to talk about it again. There are going to be new cell phone guidelines in place when the new school year begins in August. We are finalizing the details of those now and will share them broadly prior to the start of the school year. However, and this is very important, the emphasis will be on ensuring that cell phones are not utilized during instructional time, during class, because we know that in our school district, they are significant distractors. We will provide class set Chromebooks that will be available for use. If these adjustments do not work, I will, as superintendent, move to recommend a more rigorous way to ensure that cell phones do not interfere in our students' ability to be educated properly in this county. And there are a number of local districts who have made moves around total bans, in addition to some at the national level, one of them being LA Unified, which is the second largest school district in the country. And so these are conversations that we will have with our community, but there's a ton of research out here that talks about the harm and the interference that it runs in our students' ability to be able to focus on their schoolwork. And we owe it to our students to also protect them for themselves. It is a conversation that we will continue to have. Grading regulations. We're also going to be making some changes to our grading regulation to increase the responsibility on students to get work done on time and allow teachers to focus on instruction and not as many redos of works. Just as with the cell phone guidelines, we will be communicating these changes widely prior to the start of the school year. What you will see is a product of input from administrators, principals, school leadership teams, and teachers and students. My goal is to provide a full revised update to this board in the Friday packet around these changes to the regulations. This also comes from a number of visits over the first 2 years, speaking with full-blown faculty and staff members in schools, individual educators, representatives of our union, and most importantly, parents. I've received a significant amount of emails from parents that they feel that the bar is not high enough. And if Anne Arundel County expects to be one of the greatest school districts in this country, we have to raise the bar. And what I know about our students, they will jump over that bar. But if you have a bar low that they're just stepping over, we're doing a disservice and we're not preparing these kids to be globally competitive, because we are actually enabling bad habits that are transferable when they graduate from our county. And I can't have that be a part of my legacy as superintendent. Finally, as we've shared with you all before, we plan to, at the middle of every July, we will give full updates on a weekly basis on where our school district is from a vacancy standpoint. This was as of July 15th. Today is the 17th. I believe that number with teacher vacancies has dropped. It's probably around 146 or somewhere in that range. I'm looking at our HR person. I know that it has dropped. This is an unbelievable position to be in right now with over 5,700 teachers. I don't think we've seen numbers like this in a number of years, and we still have a month to go. You can see we have 0 bus driver vacancies, alternative vehicle driver vacancies. The custodian numbers are much lower than they were last year at this time. Look at our food service workers. I remember that number being close to 300 when I first got here. Crossing guards, we're at 43. That number has been static. I'm actually going to have lunch with the police chief to have some further conversation about this in a week or so, just to talk about how can we really work on getting that movement there. And then athletic trainers. Here's what I also want to share with you. On July 17th, which is tonight at North County High School from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., we will have a job fair. We have 89 people currently registered for that. On July 31st, we will have another job fair at Quarterfield Elementary from 5 to 7 p.m. We currently have 64 people registered. We think those numbers will continue to increase. So the bottom line is this. There's a lot of interest in people wanting to work in Anne Arundel County. I think over the last 2 years, we've done a phenomenal job of retaining more of our people. I think we've demonstrated that we care about the people who are working in this county. These numbers will give me leverage to advocate differently when it comes to budgetary things that need to take place from the county and at higher levels. We fill the vacancies. Now we put it back on the county. It is hard for me as a superintendent to ask for more positions when we haven't been able to demonstrate that we can fill the ones that we had. These numbers tell you that it's getting ready to be a whole different scenario for Anne Arundel County. And I really have to say to Jessica Cutches and your phenomenal team that you put together, this is amazing. This is amazing where we are right now. So I want to thank you all and commend you all publicly. Mr. President, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Ms. Shalheim.
Wow, those numbers are amazing. I just wanted to comment very, very briefly on the crossing guard one. That is absolutely true. We've seen that number remain exactly the same. It should be noted for the public listening at home who might not be as aware, like that the crossing guards fall under the police department's budget. They're responsible for the recruitment, the hiring, the training, the staffing of all those crossing guards. When those routes get unfilled, it leaves some pretty hefty safety concerns for our students who are walking to school, sometimes across really busy roads. And I just really hope that the police department take it upon themselves to maybe change the way they look and prioritize the crossing guard jobs and the staffing of those jobs, and really look harder at what they need to do to fill those spots. To have that number stay stagnant for 2 years at least is rather unacceptable. The rest of those numbers are fantastic though, and massive kudos to everyone involved.
Ms. Crocodile.
Thank you, President Silkworth. I too am commenting on the crossing guards here a little bit. When I was a kid, many decades ago, we had volunteers. They were mostly retired folks in the community. They were moms who had the privilege of staying at home with their children, would serve in that capacity. Or people who had other alternative jobs. Some of our public safety individuals would also take that. And then we decided that, what they're doing is of value. We gave them some stipend, and now they are fully paid services. We can't turn back the clock as the availability of our community, but we can ask our community to rethink about this. There are so many intersections that we need that support that we're unable to provide. Crossing guards is something that we cannot backfill with our own people. They are special trained, and they are an integral part of the police force itself. Our safety is very important. And I will just say noteworthy for that meeting next week is that we just invested a lot of money into speeding cameras and improving some of our intersections to the tune of a lot of dollars. That tells me that there is some flexibility in money that was perhaps neglected in being allocated to them. And nurses are the other one, which I didn't see there. Dr. Bedell, do you have a understanding of our nursing staff, of our nurse staffing? Because that's also the county. I didn't see that on there, and maybe in the next meeting or something, we could get that number as
Yeah,
well.
let me find out on that because I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Yeah, because those are two things that handle the safety and security and well-being and health of our folks. But that number being static there, that is clearly something that could definitely use some improvement. And I don't think the community would say to the contrary, that that they would not want to make sure that we have a package, a compensation package that would attract crossing guards to that end. And thank you very much. These numbers are outstanding. And I would argue that some of these vacancies are less than pre-COVID, and quite a couple of them. And so we are not just making progress on the losses that we may have experienced, but we are also building new and building better. And to that effect, I thank the administration for it.
Ms. Frank.
Thank you, President Silkworth. Yes, I too echo my excitement about the numbers that we're seeing. I think, a lot of people are referring to, what happened when you started 2 years ago and before that. I think it would be helpful to kind of to track that and to show everybody, like, here's where we were a couple of years ago. Here's where we were at the end of COVID. Here's where we were when I started. Because I think you have a good story to tell here with the work that you've done. So I would certainly be interested in seeing that. I mean, just from my memory, I can see some really incredible gains. And, most of this looks really, really great, especially, like the custodians, the teachers, the bus drivers. They all are really great numbers that were showing up today. So I appreciate that. I did have a couple of comments on the cell phone grading and discipline initiatives that you're working on. I think that these are all things that, when we talk about grow, belong, and succeed, everybody in the community should be able to get behind these initiatives and support you on this. So I really thank you for taking, I know cell phone is probably going to be one of the trickier ones. And when I've talked to people, well, what does a cell phone policy look like? Everybody has a bit of a different understanding of what it should look like, and trying to balance the wants of the community with what works and what doesn't work. And do you take cell phones completely? Do you put them in a box and then become responsible for them if something happens to them? All of that gets really tricky. So what I would say to the community in this instance is the easiest thing to do is to make it the broadest, most, or least prescriptive, put the cell phone away. And if we can do that, everything will be a lot simpler moving forward. So I really appreciate that that's where we're starting. But I also appreciate your interest in continuing to make sure that this is working the way that it's meant to work. Because if it doesn't work, and if cell phones continue to be a problem, the grading and the discipline are all tied into that. So we have to get the cell phone piece right. So I just wanted to emphasize that. I think the numbers are great, but I think this cell phone policy is the key to a lot of the other initiatives that you're doing. And I am just really enthusiastic when I say that everybody should come together on this and help our students to be successful with this first piece. So thank you.
I do need to, let me just follow up on that because I did all 20 of our commencements this year. And the one thing I heard, whether it was one teacher or 3 teachers coming up to me, they said, Dr. Bedell, we are really appreciative that you guys are really going to take seriously the cell phone and the grading regulation concerns. I've heard that from multiple schools during our time at Live, during those commencements. But I also think that putting that announcement out, and I'll say this, I'll give you credit, Mr. Silkworth. We had a one-on-one, and you said the sooner you can get that out, it may prevent people from wanting to leave the school district. I really do believe getting that information out at the time that we did, that we're going to be addressing this, because we were talking about it behind closed doors. I think it also is a big reason why people are staying, because these were the concerns. And this is the stuff that's running people out of the school districts. They don't feel that they're going to get good data. Kids aren't going to learn. Their test scores are going to be down. And we know accountability is a real big deal. And nobody wants to be in a situation where they feel like they're losing the second they start the school year with all of these other distractors. I don't think any of us got into education to create educational malpractice. And ultimately that becomes a problem that we have to deal with. And so I do think that this is going to make a difference. And I will say this, Ms. Frank, I've spoken to county council. We have widespread support with county council. I think we have widespread support with the vast majority of our delegates. I know we have support with the Annapolis County Council. So there is a ton of support out here that this needs to be done and it needs to be addressed. And I'm working with NAACP, Caucus of African American Leaders, and some of those entities. We're going to have a meeting in November, a community meeting starting with that group, because NAACP, they're on board with this too. And then we're going to go out on a tour with the whole community about these changes, educating everybody on why we have to have community-wide support if we want to move from a good system to it being great. So thank you.
Dr. Tobin.
Thank you. Yeah, so again, as my colleagues have done, congratulations on the numbers. I remember conversations in the summer before the school year started that we typically start with 150 vacancies among teachers at the beginning of the year. So to be there in July is terrific, and to see that bus driver number is extraordinary, and of course the custodians, food service workers, et cetera, all those other numbers. I would also say that I have heard concerns about cell phones, grading, et cetera, from the time I came on this board. And I think it is incredibly important that we are working towards this. And I will simply add to my colleagues and to your comments, Dr. Bedell, that the cell phone policy is not only crucial to so many other issues that we want to address, but it requires the support of the community almost more than anything else. Parents need to support this with their students. And I will say, for all sorts of perfectly good reasons in the world we live in now, and especially through shutdowns and all the rest of it, there's a sense that we can be reachable all the time. And the truth is, we have to be clear that there are times for doing other things. And school is not a time, except in the gravest emergency, where a child should be reachable by phone. And I think that sort of reminder for the community that this is what's going to have to happen as our students have returned to school. And, you know, school takes work and focus. And when you are distracted, you can't do that. And so I think I'm glad to hear about the tours and the work you and your team are planning to do in the community. But I think this is yet another case where we need the support of the community moving forward to really ensure that students can focus, which also brings us back to some of the testimony we heard, which is that we need to ensure that communication is clear and that parents feel secure that their children are well taken care of in school. So there is not a need to immediately be on the phone or whatever other communication structures are there. So these things are all bound up together in certain ways. But thank you for sharing this. Thank you.
Ms. Dent.
So congratulations great work, staff. I know you guys have been working hard on trying to get a adequate staff. And so I haven't seen 164 since I gotten here. So Dr. Tobin may talk about aid, but we won't discuss that. But my concern is a little bit different. My concern is, while I'm happy to see the bus driver vacancies is no longer a problem, we still continue to have a fleet problem. So is there a way ahead to where we could get a update on the fleet of both the contractors and our internal fleet, as well as the number of routes that that we have, that especially in North County, that are not being fully staffed. That's one. Second one is that, and I know we've done it before, and I don't want to go down this road because I know that your team is already ahead. Not saying that they aren't, but I have lots of emails that talks about unsafe walk routes. So while I know that this may be a policy concern about students that are within that 1 mile radius, and I understand it's the walk route, there are some grave concerns about buses that are particularly empty because the child is not unable to ride because they're within that year. So if in your future update, if you can address those two issues, I would be appreciative. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so the plan will be, I know next board meeting will be our, I want to say our opening of school presentation. So we will build that in there and we'll make sure that those questions are answered and presented in a slide deck presentation. And then Ms. Frank, we will also look at a 3 to 4 year comparison around staffing so we can show the progress. We'll do that at next month's board meeting too.
Hey, I'd like to thank everyone. I do have a few comments. Ms. Frank, you mentioned that you like the policy, the cell phone to kind of be real broad and so forth. And to some extent it should, but I wish it were quite as simple as that. Someone that's been in the classroom and knows a little bit about the cell phones, they were never a problem for me. And I say this all the time, it's the relationship piece that's built in the classroom with the teachers and the students. If it's based on caring and trust and respect, then my students always knew that there was a time and there was not a time, but there was also a consequence if you chose to violate this. I want students that are out there listening, students that may be here, make sure that you understand that this taking a look at the cell phone policy is not to take cell phones out of your hands. It's because what we know as educators, student outcomes have been so negatively impacted across the country and across this district. And so we're talking about your future. First 20 years of my career, the only phone that was around was the pay phone right outside the cafeteria door. And then at some point in time, I had an office next to my room and I had a phone. And at one point in time, I actually had the phone in my room. I will tell you, I exercise common sense. If I knew that a student needed to use that phone for some particular reason, I made it happen. And when they all had their cell phones in their hands, they also knew that if they were in crisis, they knew they could come to me and that communication was going to take place. So this is going to involve that same relationship building between all stakeholders, that same trust, and with the community, parents, students, teachers, admin, all stakeholders. And we can't have one department in a school or one teacher decide, well, I'm going to do it my way, even though this is what the rules say. We have to be consistent about the implementation of this. And so this is going to be a remarkable thing to help improve student outcomes. That's the goal. And guess what? Now's the time, because across the country, if you talk to folks, whether it's locally or at state level or the national level, everybody's saying we have to do some of these cell phones. So, but guess what? We're not just looking at, and I just need to make this very clear. that everybody understands that Dr. Bedell and this board, we're not just looking at cell phones. We are looking at that. Dr. Bedell mentioned the grading policy. We're looking at attendance, and we're looking at the discipline issues. So we are focused on those items that impact our student outcomes. So we're going to go from good to great, and this is what we have to do in order to do that. So, all right, I think we're finished with that. We're going to be moving on next to item some awarded contracts for consent items. Do I hear a motion to bundle?
All right, I move to bundle 5.01 through 5.04 and 5.12 and 5.13.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion for a bundle. We have a second. Do we have consensus? Yeah, we do have consensus. And so, Dr. Bedell.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts outlined on the consent items 5.01 through 5.04 and 5.12 and 5.13. We are asking the board to take action on those contracts.
I move to adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis? Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdui?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I move to bundle items 5.05 to 5.11.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have consensus? Seeing that we do have consensus, Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contracts under the consent items 5.05 through 5.11.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Did I hear a second?
Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Bedell.
Right. So we just need to get a
We
vote.
need a vote.
Just need a vote.
Okay, Ms. Howe.
Ms. Frank?
Nay.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdawi?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Okay, we're moving on to item 6.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Bedell.
Mr. President, the superintendent recommends that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted or appointed as discussed in executive close.
I move to adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdui?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, item 6.02, personnel.
Mr. President, the superintendent recommends that the board approve the actions as stipulated on the attached sheets.
I move to adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Ms. Howe.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdawi?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, we're moving on to some policy revisions. 6.03, third reading, eligible riders, code EAA.
All right, thank you. We do have Grace Wilson here. I'll start with the first recommendation. The superintendent recommends approval of policy EAA on eligible riders, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Wilson.
Good afternoon, President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. I'm Grace Wilson, Senior Specialist for Legislation and Policy. Policy EAA, eligible riders, is before you this afternoon for third reading. This policy governs student transportation for eligible AACPS students to and from school in accordance with state laws and regulations, and is being updated for style and formatting. And I'd take any questions you may have.
Okay, I am not seeing any lights, so we have a motion and a second. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Shawheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdui?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, item 6.04, also third reading, 6.04, education and services for students with disabilities.
Thank you, Mr. President. The superintendent recommends the repeal of policy IL, education services for students with disabilities.
So moved. Good afternoon again. Policy IL, Education and Services for Students with Disabilities, is before you this afternoon on third reading for rescission per the recommendation of staff. This policy is duplicative of policy IFF, Special Education Programs for Students with Disabilities, which you all approved last September.
I
So, I
think,
heard-
do we still need a second?
do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard a motion. I didn't hear a
I'll
second.
offer a second.
Okay, so we now have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Shawheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdowie?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, we're moving on to policies or policy revision 6.05, employment of foreign nationals, code GD. This is the first reading.
Policy GD, Employment of Foreign Nationals, is before you this afternoon on first reading. This policy was last revised in 2008 and is being updated for style and formatting at the request of staff. And I'd be happy to take any questions you may have regarding this policy.
Ms. Corkadell?
Thank you, President Silkworth. Ms. Wilson, I just had a quick clarification question, and it's sort of one of those things that I know that is not easily visible to the public in regards to this. First, let me just say that the visitor exchange program, I actually worked managing visas for a private company, research company, in a European Commission collaboration, and understand that it can get very, there's a lot of dynamics to the whole to the whole conversation, and not necessarily relevant for policy. That is more in the regulations and the details that human resources is authorized for. But it does come up, particularly now in this post 9/11 era, of when we do have choose to develop a relationship with a foreign national, what degree of background check that we can obtain from someone when they're coming from a different country. So we know that our systems are robust, and perhaps a little bit more detailed. And so we know that some of the exchange countries that we work with don't have that level of sophistication regarding backgrounds. We've done a very good job, I think, of managing that before. But could we get maybe not for today, because it's kind of a big question, but I would be curious to see how, whether it be by example or by standard of what we do in lieu of when not all of that information is available.
Absolutely. I don't have that information off the top of my head, but we'll certainly get it to you in advance of the next meeting and be ready to discuss
That sounds
should you
great.
have any
Yeah,
questions.
it's more just understanding what the checks and balances are in the background, because what we do know is that just about every employee, minus a couple in the warehouses and this building, are going to be working with our children in one way, shape, or form. And so making sure that we know on our oversight that there's something there.
Absolutely.
we-
Can certainly get
you
you that
can't-
information.
You can't background check out someone's impulsive decision all of a sudden postscript, but knowing that we have a robust system would be good. And yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I am curious, though, how we're managing that in the modern era, especially because this thing hasn't been updated in a long time.
Of course, we'll work with our
So-
Chief Human Resource Officer to get you that information.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Ms. Frank?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Wilson, as you know, I'm not on policy committee, so I sometimes miss the sort of origin conversation. A lot of this looks like you're just cleaning up language and updating it to be a little bit more in line with what our standards are today. But I did notice there was one substantive change on item 4 under position. And you're removing the language around applications or petitions. And I just wanted to understand why that was no longer needed.
Yes, Ms. Frank, and my apologies for not addressing that in my initial remarks. Staff had recommended that this come out to help improve our recruitment of individuals to the school system for employment. They felt that the requirement of achieving tenure was no longer necessary to begin the permanent residence process for folks who had been working with the school system on these temporary visas.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, seeing no more lights, we'll move on to item 6.06, students with known anaphylactic allergies or who are perceived to be having symptoms of anaphylaxis, code JECA, and this is first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. Policy JECA, students with known anaphylactic allergies or who are perceived to be having symptoms of anaphylaxis is before you on first reading. This is the result of a change in state law. In 2023, the Maryland General Assembly passed House Bill 78, which directed the state departments of education and health to revise their state health guidance regarding anaphylaxis. We are required by law to update our practices by the 2024-2025 school year. Upon reviewing the state guidelines, staff did not recommend any substantive revisions to the policy. However, revisions have been proposed for style and formatting, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, I'm seeing no lights, so I think we're good to move on. Next, we're moving on to item 6.07, Board Emergency Management Code BL, first reading.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. Policy BL is a new proposed policy for adoption. The purpose is to mandate that the board implement a continuity of operations plan, also referred to as a COOP, to ensure the continuation of essential functions of the board during a state of local, regional, or national emergency. The policy requires that the board establish a COOP committee to be led by the president, who's responsible for the execution of the COOP in a state of emergency, that the board annually review the COOP, and that the COOP be exercised every 4 years following the election of members of the Board of Education. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but I do also want to thank Preeti Emmerich and Alex Sperling from the Anne Arundel County Office of Management, who were very helpful in crafting this policy, who are here this afternoon.
Okay, Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. I just want to speak briefly on this policy. First of all, as the member who was serving as vice president the day our schools closed down, and afterwards as president of this body, our eyes were wide or were opened from the pandemic and realizing a real need there that we didn't have. So I want to thank Ms. Corkadell for your part in leading this effort to get this policy going. And I want to thank Ms. Emmerich very much for your input, valuable and necessary input. And so the policy committee considered this in our, I believe, earlier June meeting. I think we had 2 in June. And we read through the policy. We considered it, how it would actually be applied to the board. We went back to the table to work through a few things, and what you see before us is the final product, and I'm really happy with it. And just once again, thank you, everyone who was involved in this.
Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Ellis, for the policy committee's review. It's very important that emergency management is one of the spaces where everybody needs to be on board. I know we were talking about that with cell phones, so it definitely applies with emergency management. It's only as good as the folks are able to. But if I may, President Silkworth, I would like just to take a moment to recognize we do have in the room, and I would like if Alex and Preeti wouldn't mind just standing up for a minute. Let me just say that partnership among agencies is something that we always are challenged with in government. Our silos tend to be our silos. And Miss Emmerich came on at a moment in time just before COVID hit. And what she did during COVID was establish a team of agencies. And that team of agencies is what got every single person in this room and every single person in this county through a very challenging several years. The collaboration is very, very important. And to be able to continue to work in that capacity, to then make sure that our agency is living up to the standards and expectations of our community so that we can well meet those needs has been stellar. When we knew that we were a little challenged and we would much always rather spend dollars on our students versus on internal matters, she stepped up to the plate, her and her team. They found the money out of MEMA and FEMA and made sure that we got the details and the support necessary. Finding the way of getting to the resources has been absolutely stellar. And I just want to say thank you so very much, because this is the model of how we should be always working with every single agency, whether it's working to get crossing guards or working to get our health needs met for our students. This is the model. And I applaud you, because you've come into this county and you have made a huge difference. And I know when that emergency hits that we are in good hands. There is no question about it. We are well organized for it, and we can address it under the best possible circumstances. And that now, between our two adoptions of our policies, is going to become inclusive of our quasi-state agencies, our locally assigned ones, inclusive of Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So thank you so very much. Excellent work and outstanding. Now, if I may, yes, thank you. Now, President Silkworth, I did want to speak specifically on the policy, if I may. I hope that was not part of my time. Well spent. So let me just tell the public that, one of my honey-do list things 5.5 years ago was to get us such a policy in place for this board. Having worked with the county in constituent services as an officer, I had the unique experience of watching us go from the fire department managing emergency management to a full-blown department, and actually sitting and receiving training and working alongside with these folks. Mr. Aftung, Director Aftung, was in charge at that time and then retired. And just as we were getting ready to work with our COO and some of our deputy superintendents on it, of course, COVID hit. It was a great opportunity for me to use some of my training to write down the stuff that I knew that we were going to need to address eventually. And so fast forward, we worked on it a little bit as time permitted. And now this year was definitely the time. The board formed an ad hoc committee and met under emergency management. Of course, we have to keep our secrets of how we handle things to keep everybody at its safest, of course. But the collaborative effort was excellent. And then we eventually handed the package over to Miss Wilson and she made miracles happen. I got to say though, talk about should be. She just so happened to have a little bit experience in policy writing when it comes to emergency management. So it seemed like a match made in heaven team. And then lastly, I want to call out Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson made sure that we got what we needed in order to understand why we need the policy from the operational, and why, we really need something just for us. our responsibilities. So I want to thank my colleagues for reviewing the drafts, for making sure that it is inclusive of the board and that every member of this board has the buy-in. And want to thank everybody for all of that effort. Sometimes it does take 5 years to write a policy, folks, and get it right. And I don't regret any one hesitation or any one other, minus a couple incidental frustrations along the way, perhaps. But thank you guys so very much. I'm looking forward to adopting this and when we get to our third reader. And once again, collaboration does work, patience works, and it's all worth it, because at the end of the day, if something were to happen, we are much better prepared when we know what we need to do to help you be safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corkadell. This truly was a collaborative effort, and it moves on to second reading.
Thank you all so much.
Okay. Item 6.08, filling of vacancies on Executive Committee of Countywide Citizens Advisory Committee. I think there's a motion.
Yes, the board recommends approval of filling vacancies on the executive committee of the Countywide Citizen Advisory Committee, CAC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Ms. Howe?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Shawheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdawi?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, item 6.09, the appointment of Ethics Panel Member.
The board recommends the appointment of the person on the attached sheet to be appointed to the ethics panel to fill the vacancy of the term beginning July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. I see no lights, no discussion. Ms. Howe?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Shawheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdawi?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, item 6.10, Forest Conservation Easement for Cat North.
Mr. President, the superintendent recommends approval of the Forest Conservation Declaration of Covenants, conditions and restrictions at the Center of Applied Technology North.
Move to adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no lights, Ms. Howe?
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Shawheim?
Aye.
Ms. Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Hamdawi?
Aye.
And Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, we have a few review items, 7.01, construction status report, 7.02. We have any questions or concerns? Okay, so we're now going to be moving on to our public comments on non-agenda items. And before we hear that, once again, I'd like to remind everyone that the board will hear public comment for up to 10 members, combination of virtual and in-person on agenda items and non-agenda items. This is the non-agenda items. I'd like to remind everyone that any inappropriate personnel remarks or other behavior that disrupts or interferes with the conduct of this meeting are out of order. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Any handouts should be given to the board assistant. I ask that speakers observe the 2-minute clock. A yellow light will shine when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a tone will sound when your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the tone. If you continue after your time has expired, the mic will be turned off. Could also be turned off if a speaker addresses specific student or employee matters or are commenting on matters not related to public education in Anne Arundel County. And so I'm going to call up this is in-person comment on non-agenda items. I'm going to call up the first 5. We have Tyler Ray, Jacob Carter, Shelley Carter, Yvonne Berger, and Mary Didone. Tyler here? Tyler?
Hello, my name is Tyler Ray. I'm a rising junior. I've spent the first 2 years of high school at North County. Because of redistricting, I'm supposed to finish my last 2 years at Glen High School. I like going to North County High School because the teachers and coaches are like family to me. I consider my teammates family. I used to not like school very much, but North County changed that. I was at school most days, even in the summer, because it is right down the street. I would walk there, practice lacrosse, soccer with my teammates. I never liked school because I found it uncomfortable and difficult. I didn't think school was for people like me. The teachers and coaches at North County helped me with that. They make me feel like I can accomplish things and be a better person, especially Mr. Sullivan. I don't think it's fair that other students get to stay and I have to go to another school and start over. I am afraid I won't have that same support I have at North County and lose the progress I've made so far in high school. I didn't do anything wrong. I have good attendance, good grades. I don't get in any trouble. I feel like I'm being punished. Now at summer workouts at Glen Burnie, I feel like an outcast. I feel like I don't fit in. I feel lost. I feel like I don't belong. I don't think anyone thought about the negative effect it could have on some students' mental and emotional well-being. Please allow juniors to have same choice as seniors, stay or go to the new school so that we can grow and succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob?
Good afternoon, Board of Education. My name is Jacob Carter. I'm in 11th grade, and I currently attend North County High School, but I'm being redistricted to go to Glen Burnie High School. I'm here today to voice my opinion about the redistricting taking place. Over the past 2 years in North County, I've worked hard to make positive relationships with my fellow students, teachers, and staff members that are irreplaceable. These are more than just relationships inside of school. North County has made me feel welcome since the first day here and has treated me like family. If I were to be ripped out of North County after 2 years, it would be like ripping me out of my family. I asked the Board of Education to rethink their decision to rip kids like me out of their school and carelessly throw us into another.
Shelley Carr.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm concerned about the equity of the upcoming school year's redistricting plan for several reasons. Firstly, many parents, including myself, were denied the opportunity to apply for out-of-area transfers with professional documentation simply because our area is slated for redistricting. This seems unfair as students not affected by redistricting can apply and potentially be approved. Secondly, I am troubled by the inconsistency regarding the opening of Crofton High School. 11th and 12th graders in the Crofton area were allowed to remain at their current schools until graduation when the new high school opened. While our current 11th graders are facing redistricting, are not given the same option. This raises questions about why similar accommodations cannot be made across the board. Thirdly, the phased approach to the redistricting plan means that students in the same grades as ours being treated differently depending on their phase. For instance, students entering 11th grade in phase 1 are being uprooted from their schools, whereas counterparts in other parts of the county face no disruption despite being in the same grade. Additionally, our children have spent the last 2 years building relationships with teachers, peers, and staff at their current school. Moving them to a new school would disrupt these important connections, putting them at a disadvantage compared to students already settled in their current schools. Overall, I urge for transparency and reconsideration of these concerns to ensure all students are treated fairly and equitably throughout the redistricting process. Thank you.
Yvonne Berger.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Berger. I'm a proud, lifelong Anne Arundel County resident that I've always supported and boasted about our standards here compared to other counties. But I am a little concerned with the way the communities are being shuffled about. I'm concerned about my son's journey from North County High School to another school. Ninth grade was a very difficult year. So many adjustments needed to be made. We have worked hard to manage these adjustments, and finally we are back on track, on a roll 3 out of the last 4 quarters, only to have to start all over again. I also have an incoming 5th grader who knows they will be going to another school in 2026, and that adjustment has been fine because they've never been to middle school, so it's not a big deal for them to have to make that adjustment. But for an 11th grader to change has been terrifying. Glen Burnie, Glen Burnie may be a good school, but not for my child's needs. It doesn't fit. We ask that you review out of area transfers with documentation supporting it. Also, I've spoken with several people in the Ferndale community, parents and business owners and many others are very disappointed with the community's move, taking the core individuals away from that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Didon.
For the record, Mary DeJoni, resident of Anne Arundel County. In September 2021, I filed an ethics complaint with the ethics panel. My original complaint was filed in my name only, not representing any other organization. I believe the board finally heard that complaint today. My testimony concerns a nearly 3-year delay in the hearing of that complaint. I was responsible, possibly, for 2 months of that delay. The rest of the delay has been entirely with the ethics panel and the board council. Section 2 of the ethics policy BAF reads in part, the Board of Education, recognizing that our system of representative government is dependent upon the people maintaining the highest trust in the public officials and their employees, finds and declares that the people have a right to be assured that the impartiality and independent judgment of public officials and employees shall be maintained. It is evident that this confidence and trust is eroded when the conduct of public business is subject to improper influence or even the appearance of improper influence, and the same language can be found in Comar. Justice delayed is justice denied is an accepted legal maxim. I believe that the prolonged delay in the handling of my complaint amounts to the denial of my civil rights. The consequence, as alluded to in the ethics policy, is an erosion of confidence and trust in the conduct of the business of the Board of Education. Although I speak only for myself, my concern is for the rights of many, many more. I've provided you with copies of all the related correspondence. You will receive it. Thank you for receiving this testimony and for your consideration of the issue I've raised. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. I'd like to call up Amelia Dodson. Amelia.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Amelia Dodson. I am a nationally board certified teacher, NBCT, in Anne Arundel County Public Schools at Brooklyn Park Elementary School, one of only 3 schools being removed from the Maryland State Department MSDE Title I Part A school list for the 24-25 school year. My journey to become an NBCT began September 2022, and my goal was achieved in December 2023, a journey completed in just over a year, which takes many twice as long to complete. My decision to complete the National Board Certification, NBC, process within a year was to ensure even if my school was removed from the list in the 24-25 school year, I would still be eligible for the $7,000 yearly enhancement. In addition to professional pride in demonstrating mastery of teaching by attaining a status only 94 teachers in the county achieved this time around, the salary increase is a significant incentive for many, including me, to spend the long hours working at a high-needs school and undergo the stress of becoming an MBCT. I speak this afternoon asking that the $7,000 yearly enhancement, which is being removed for 5 teachers who taught in an MSDE identified school during the 22-23 and 23-24 school year and achieved MBC status on December 9th, 2023, be reinstated because our schools will be removed from the MSDE school list for the 24-25 school year as a result of teacher and student success. We understand there is a negotiated agreement for when teachers begin their NBC pay. However, it is a huge inequity to not pay the $7,000 yearly enhancement incentive pay, even though we actively taught at as an NBCT for 5.5 months during the 23-24 school year when our school was on the MSDE identified school list. I want you to support our efforts and find a resolution that solves the inequity for teachers who taught in an MSDE identified school who are not eligible for the $7,000 enhancement because we will not begin receiving our MBCT enhancement pay until August 2024 and make the proper and equitable $7,000 salary adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do not actually have any virtual public comment, I believe, this afternoon. So that does conclude the comment on non-agenda items. That brings us to the end. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Consensus? Thank you. So we'd like to thank everybody for being with us here this afternoon. The next board meeting will be August the 21st. That's a Wednesday. And it'll be a 12 p.m. Meeting here in the boardroom. Thank you so much for being with us. Please stay cool. Take care.